Ladies and gentlemen, it is official. Donald Trump has clinched the Republican Party nomination. He has secured the necessary amount of delegates that you need to win for their party. And there's nobody else left on that side of the field to challenge him. So it's basically over. Donald Trump has done it. Now, before I dive into my little speech here, I just want everybody to take a step back for a second. Just think back to about a year ago. Who could have imagined this? Who could have predicted this particular outcome? That we'd be facing this situation at this point in the election cycle, where Donald Trump is one of the two people in the entire world that has a legitimate shot of winning the United States presidency. This guy could very well become the leader of the free world. Donald Trump, the guy who used to host The Apprentice, okay? The guy who has all these high-profile celebrity marriages, all these high-profile real estate developments that he constantly brags about. The guy who has zero political experience. That this guy could become our next president. It leaves you wondering, man. Number one, how did we get here? You know, what series of events led to this particular outcome? And then number two, who's to blame? Well, the answer to that second question, it really varies depending on the people you ask. Some people will say, well, it's the media, man. It's the mainstream media. They're the ones who gave Trump this gigantic microphone. They're the ones who gave him this gigantic platform, gave him the assurance that as long as he says something completely controversial, completely sensational, he will get wall-to-wall blasting coverage from the mainstream media, and they will be completely biased with it. They won't cover anybody else but him. They will give him the platform that he needs to launch all this hateful rhetoric straight out into the American public and allow the right-wing base to eat it up. They're the ones who enabled this, right? So many people rightfully argue that the mainstream media, they're the ones who are to blame for the rise of Donald Trump. Well, to a certain extent, right? But then we also have to consider that, well, they can't just completely ignore it. Right? This is a guy who's running for president saying all these hateful things. They at least have to report it. They at least have to say this happened. That's kind of their job, right? But then, at the same time, did they have to be completely biased with it? Did they have to just wall-to-wall blast this out and just say, yep, Donald Trump said this about the illegal immigrants, said this about Muslims, said this about abortion patients, said this about everything else. He's a racist, he's a xenophobe. Be mad, be mad, be mad, America. Did they have to just completely do that and just ignore every other candidate besides Hillary Clinton? No, they did not have to do that by any stretch of the imagination. So yes, they are to blame to a certain extent. They're the ones who gave him the microphone, this gigantic, overly huge platform, right? But then you also have to consider, where did Donald Trump come from? The right wing. Yes, the conservatives. Yes, they're the ones who are really to blame for the rise of Donald Trump. The right wing, they are the ones to blame for the rise of Donald Trump. Want to know why? You have to look back. Look back in history. Let's take just a rewind here to 35 years ago. Yeah, about 35 years ago. It's 2016. You have Ronald Reagan. He's come on the scene. He's now the president of the United States. The right wing, they've made this huge ascension. The conservatives, they really are back, and they are dominating politics. And you have the two-party system really just combating each other at this point because the right wing has made a serious ascension onto the scene. And how did they get there? Well, they started doing, I think the correct term is identity politics. You can correct me if you want. That's the only couple times I've ever used that term, but I think that's the right word. Which is identity politics. We start talking about all these minority groups, and instead of just focusing on the real problems facing the American people, the fact that people are broke, the fact that people are struggling, the fact that the elite keeps screwing them over, that this economy is becoming more and more rigged against them. Instead of focusing on those issues, let's focus on the illegal immigrants. Ah, yes, those dirty Mexicans, those dirty Latinos. Oh yeah, the ones who mow your lawn, the ones who pick all your freaking groceries, the ones who clean your bathrooms, the ones who build all these structures that you live in, the ones who do all of these menial tasks. Yes, those. They're the ones who are to blame for your struggles. They're the ones who are stealing your jobs. They're bringing over all these drugs. They're rapists. They're criminals. They're the ones to blame for your troubles. The blacks, oh yes. They commit so much crime. They're absolutely terrible. These dirty black people. Another one. Gays. Gays, yes, with their sodomy. Ugh, ew. Look at them kissing each other, the same sex. Ew, that's unnatural. Ew. They're the ones to blame for your troubles somehow. All of these different minority groups, they just continue just blaming them and blaming them and blaming them and focusing on all of these unimportant issues instead of focusing on the real issues. The right wing, they started doing this and they kept doing this and they've been doing it for the past 35 years. It's allowed them to continue to stay in power by courting just bigoted, just hateful people. Just white old men basically living in the South and the Midwest. That's basically the heart of their base. Okay, and they've continued to court them for 35 years with all this hateful rhetoric. But see, here's the catch though. Here's the catch. They've been doing it kind of low key. You know what I'm saying? They haven't been like Donald Trump for the last 35 years. Instead of saying, the immigrants gotta go. We need to protect our borders. Donald Trump simply says, hey man, the immigrants are rapists and criminals and they gotta go. I'm gonna deport all of them. Screw them. I hate them to the very ounce of their soul. Screw illegal immigrants. And the conservatives of the past, they would say, oh, the Muslims, Sharia law is terrible. 9/11, we need to be tough on terrorism. Donald Trump says, no more Muslims in America. They need to go. The Muslims are to blame for everything. You get where I'm coming from? Okay? Donald Trump is not being low-key with his bigotry. He's not being on the DL with his bigotry. Donald Trump is unabashedly saying, I'm a bigot, screw every minority group, they're the ones to blame for all of your troubles. Not the elite, of course, we're never going to really acknowledge that. But yes, the illegal immigrants, the Muslims, the gays, the blacks, all of these minority groups, they are to blame for your troubles, and don't let anybody tell you differently. Okay? He is not scared to just simply say all of those ridiculous things. That's the difference. So yes, they're the ones who created this monster. By getting their base riled up with all this hateful rhetoric, finally, somebody comes along and just completely embraces it and is not low-key with it. And yes, of course they're going to flock to this guy. Because he is not scared to say what you've been feeding them with all along. Yes, Donald Trump is the right wing's creation. Oh yeah, and one little side note here, while we're on the topic of Donald Trump and the general election. Hillary Clinton, her lead against Donald Trump that we talked about like 2 weeks ago, it's gone. That small lead has evaporated. It left the building like a glass of water in 100-degree heat, man. It's done. Okay? So, we have to reiterate, man. Hillary Clinton is not safe against this guy. Donald Trump is fastly becoming the favorite to win the presidency. Might want to start getting used to that, man. Donald Trump, President of the United States. Incredible, man.